The Kia Carnival and the Telluride are two very capable SUVs. Since they're both manufactured by Kia, they have very similar feature sets, but there are some pretty key differences between the two of them. In this video, I'm going to compare the Kia Carnival to the Telluride to help you figure out if it makes more sense to go for the Carnival or the Telluride. Let's go for it. Starting off underneath the hood of these SUVs, they have very similar engine choices, very slight difference in the displacement. In the Carnival, there's only the option for the 3.5-liter V6, which pushes out 290 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. Inside of the Telluride, you only have the option for the 3.8-liter V6. Power-wise, it's very similar to the Carnival, pushing out 291 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque. There is no option for a hybrid when you look at either the Carnival or the Telluride. But having said that, Kia just announced a new electric vehicle that should be coming later this year, which is built on the same platform or similar platform as the Telluride. So it's going to be an 8-seat electric SUV, which looks pretty neat. When we look at the drivetrain, in the US, you're going to find the Telluride with standard front-wheel drive in most trim levels, while that shifts to optional all-wheel drive in the US, versus in Canada, we're strictly looking at an all-wheel drive version of the Telluride. If you compare that to the Carnival is only going to be available front-wheel drive in both Canada and the States. So if you are looking for a vehicle that's got all-wheel drive for better winter performance, you're absolutely going to want to look at the Telluride over the Carnival. Both vehicles are fairly close when you compare the size as well. The Carnival is going to be slightly longer in comparison, and that does translate to a tiny little bit of added cargo capacity in comparison to the Telluride. But I mean, realistically, looking at the cargo capacity between the two vehicles, they are very close to one another because they both do feature 3 rows. And the Carnival has one up on the Telluride though, because the way that the rear end, so the trunk part storage, works for the Carnival, you could literally sit inside of that thing if you wanted to. Compare that to the Telluride and you don't have quite as much depth when we look at maximum depth inside of the cargo area by itself. But other than that, the width, height, and the length inside are pretty much identical between the two of them. Towing capacity for both vehicles is actually fairly different from one another as well. Inside of the Telluride, you've got the option for towing 5,000 pounds in most trim levels of the vehicle. There is the option though for the newly introduced X Pro trim level, which is going to bump the towing capacity up to 5,500 pounds. Now, if we look at the Carnival in comparison, that's going to max out at 3,500 pound towing capacity. So it doesn't matter which trim level of the vehicle that you're in, the max you're going to be able to tow inside the Carnival is 3,500 pounds. So looking at one to the other, 5,500 versus 3,500 pounds, if you've got a need for more towing, you're going to want to have the Telluride at the top of your list. When we look at fuel economy for both vehicles, they are fairly close to one another. Doesn't matter if you're looking at the front-wheel drive Telluride, the all-wheel drive version, and then even the Carnival, they are both very similar when we look at the fuel economy. Now, both vehicles only require regular 87 fuel as well, which is great because there's no need to go premium inside of either of these vehicles. You're going to find very similar technology in both the Telluride as well as the Carnival. However, there are a few small differences between the two of them. Both vehicles have the option for a 360 camera, which is known as the surround view monitor in the Kia world. I have to say that I really do like the way that Kia displays their 360 camera though. Having this unique view, I love the look of this. I think they've done a phenomenal job at the programming looking at how they've displayed the vehicle for the 360 view. In both vehicles, you're going to have exterior features like reverse sensing systems as well as a forward sensing system. Those forward sensors are going to depend on which trim level of the vehicle you end up going with. There's an option like reverse brake assist, so as you're backing up, if there's an obstacle behind you, it'll slam on the brakes as an added safety feature. They both feature lane keep assist and a very unique blind view monitor. So in the Kia world with the blind view monitor, it actually utilizes the side-mounted cameras, so the ones that are on the side view mirrors. And when you hit your turn signal left or right, it's actually going to display your blind spot right inside of the cluster screen. Like, yeah, we can utilize the little lights on the side view mirrors, or you could turn your head one way or the other if you wanted to, but just the way it's laid out nicely in the dash, I think is also a really cool feature that more manufacturers should definitely take advantage of. One unique feature that the Telluride is going to have that you won't find inside of the Carnival is a head-up display. Now, it's not available in every trim level of the Telluride, but it is available there in some of the higher trims, and it just looks really nice. It's not obtrusive, shows you your speed, road speed. If you had navigation going for your factory nav, it would also show you the directions right in front of the driver. It's a pretty neat setting. You're going to find the option for highway drive assist inside of both vehicles, so it actually utilizes the map, and then it can brake for you, it can accelerate, and it could even potentially change lanes at the same time. Really cool features that are available, but you could also use regular cruise control instead if you don't want to rely on technology to get you from A to B on the highway. Both the Carnival and Telluride have a feature called the Smart Liftgate that lets you walk up to the trunk area of the vehicle. As long as you've got your key fob on you, you wait there for a few seconds, you're going to hear beeping, and then it's going to lift the liftgate up for you automatically, which is fantastic. Now, I did have somebody comment on one of the videos that they were walking through when their vehicle was parked in the garage, and unfortunately, the liftgate went up, and before they could stop it, it kind of hit the top of the garage. So you could set a unique height so it won't go past that certain height, so that something like that doesn't happen to you. But just go in knowing that that feature, it is available. Just be cognizant and aware when you're using it. Now, on top of that, it also has a walk away feature, where if your liftgate is up and you walk away from the vehicle, you're going to hear beeping and then it's going to automatically close for you at the same time. It's not available across the entire trim level lineup, but the ones that have it, I just think it's a brilliant feature. Both vehicles have media screens that support Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but you can only use Android Auto, Apple CarPlay in the majority of trim levels, like the higher trim levels, if you're hooked up over USB. Now, it's a point of contention for me because a lot of these vehicles also do have wireless charge pads. So you can wirelessly charge your phone if you want to, but you have to be physically connected over a USB to use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. So it would be great if it was wireless connections for both of those systems, it's just not available at this point. But having said that, if you just want to connect over Bluetooth in order to be able to make phone calls or listen to music off of your phone, you could definitely do that while utilizing the wireless charge pad that's available optionally. If you're a fan of audio, you're going to love what you've got available inside of both vehicles. Both the Carnival and the Telluride do feature 6 speakers that are standard, but you've also got the option for upgraded sound systems. Inside of the Carnival, you're going to find an 8 or a 12 speaker system, versus in the Telluride, you're going to have the option for an upgraded 10 speaker Harman Kardon sound system. So those base 6 speaker sound systems, they're okay, but if you really appreciate deeper bass and better audio, you're absolutely going to want to look at one of the options with the upgraded Harman Kardon audio systems in either vehicle. The interior styling of the Carnival and the Telluride are slightly similar, but they also have some pretty key differences. They both have the option for a fully digital cluster screen that wraps nicely into the infotainment screens. They still both have traditional shifters, which I think is great, and they both feel pretty nice when gripping them in the hand. And then compare that with the dial shifter that you're going to see in other vehicles. I just think the traditional shifter, it just feels nice. I still can't get over the blind view monitor though. Whenever I see it inside of Kia vehicles, I love it. I do wish more manufacturers would utilize the side-mounted cameras, and even utilizing all the different cameras to be able to record as a dash cam. Nobody really does that outside of Tesla. Technologies though, the cameras are physically there, it's just not recording. So I do wish that more manufacturers would utilize that feature. It's just not available inside of either of these vehicles. When we look up overhead, both the Carnival and the Telluride have the option for either a single or a dual sunroof. Now, it's not a full panoramic sunroof like what we're going to find in some other manufacturers, but it is, because it's separated. It's got this little separation in the middle. And the second glass isn't going to be movable, so it's locked in place. But we still do have that main mini part of the sunroof there that could be open and closed, and I just think it's nice because it opens things up. Both vehicles also have the option for 7 or 8 passengers. And that's going to depend on a few things. Most notably is going to be which trim level of the vehicle you go with. So lower trims in the States are going to have 7 standard. In Canada, it might be 8. So it's going to depend on how you have this thing configured. Do you need 7 or 8 seats? That's a question to ask yourself. And the big one's going to be what's happening in the middle row. So you've got your first row driver passenger, second row is going to be either dual captain's chairs with an easy pass through to the third row, or it's going to be a bench seat instead where you just slide in order to get into the third row. And then that third row is going to feature 3 seats. So looking at spacing on the inside, I'm 6 feet tall, and first row, no issues, tons of headspace. Second row gets a little bit tighter, but still I can comfortably sit in the outboard seats. 3 full-size versions of me in the second row would be tight in either vehicle, but when we push into the third row, it's very, very tight for me in that third row. So realistically, getting 2 full-size adults in the third row, not a problem. 3 full-size, and you're brawling to see who gets stuck in that middle seat. But having said that, you also do have anchors and tether points in both vehicles in the second and third row. So you could put all your child seats in the third row if you wanted to go that route instead. You're going to find heated first row seats standard in both vehicles, and you're going to have the option for ventilated first row seats, heated second row seats on top of that. And then the Telluride also has the option for ventilated second row seats. And that second row ventilated seat is available in Canada and US for the Telluride. But in the Carnival, the ventilated second row seats, something you're only going to find in the Canadian SX, so the highest trim level in Canada. Surprisingly, the pricing between both the Telluride and the Carnival, they're not that far off from one another. It's ultimately going to depend on how you have it built out though, but I mean, if we take a look, the Carnival in Canada is going to run between $38,400 and about $52,500. In the States, that's about $34,500 and $48,500. Versus the Telluride, we're going to be at around $52,000 and about $65,000. Versus in the States, the Telluride's going to run you $37,000 to about $55,000. So again, it's going to depend on which trim level of the vehicle that you've got and which features you've added on. And again, big thing to take into consideration there is that the Carnival is strictly going to be front-wheel drive, versus the Telluride most likely is going to be an all-wheel drive variety instead. Now, here are some examples that you could look at for builds if you're considering either the Carnival or the Telluride. So looking at the Carnival, you'd be looking at the SX front-wheel drive, which would run you $52,200 in Canada and $43,100 in the States. Versus the Telluride, we're looking at the SX all-wheel drive, which in Canada is about $55,000 compared to $49,600 down in the States. And that's going to give you engines that are pretty much on par performance-wise, a 360 camera, LED lamps, seating for 7 in the Carnival and the Telluride, heated and cooled first row seats, heated second row seats, a smart liftgate, and so much more. So do you end up going for the Carnival or the Telluride? It's honestly going to depend on what you like the look of and what your personal needs are. Do you need slightly more cargo capacity, and are you a fan of the look of a van that's not really a van? If so, then the Carnival is going to be the vehicle you should look at. If you want to be able to tow up to 5,500 pounds, and if you want to have all-wheel drive, then the Telluride is one that you should go test drive instead. But that was a look at the Kia Carnival versus the Kia Telluride. What'd you think? And which vehicle do you think you would go for? Share your thoughts down in the comments section, and be sure to spread the word and send this video to a friend if you think they could find it helpful. Now, if you're looking for slightly more in-depth reviews on either vehicle, you can find links down in the description, or if you're on a desktop, you can check these videos out.